Good morning, pros. Today I opened up my email and I saw a reply from one of my top YouTube fans, Tamarin, who goes by A as well. And she told me that I should try an experiment. Ask ChatGPT to write something in your own voice. And based on the fact that it's written so much for me already, I mean, there's probably 10,000 words that it's written for me by now over the course of this channel. And you guys keep asking me that question, keep asking me to conduct experiments with it. And when I asked it to do this, I said, act as millennial steam, generate uh, something in your own voice and see what it produces. It came back and it said, all right, let's give this a shot. Here's how I'd put it in your voice. Let's say I'm talking about the struggles of working a full-time job yet still barely making ends meet. Something real, something relatable. So it already knows that that's the kind of guy. I'm a realist who's a pessimist, who's very angry and depressed at the world. So it took all those hundreds of videos that I've made, and this is what it did. It produced 3 paragraphs. There's this huge lie people keep telling us that if you just work hard, put in your time, and stay dedicated, you'll eventually make it. But here I am, years down the line, balancing multiple jobs, educated up to my neck, and I'm still broke. No mansion, no luxury car, not even a savings account that's worth bragging about. Just surviving week to week. And I'm seeing that, what I just said is applicable to nearly every person I know. I know 6 girls right now that are all working at the bottom, right? They're the 20 below girls, and they're not making it. They don't have family to help them. They don't have that significant other that's contributing. These are Susie Rottencrotch. All of them are Susie Rottencrotch, and they are struggling like you wouldn't believe. And for those of you who say, well, they just need to lower their standards behind the Taco Bell. That can get you a couple bucks, but it's not a career. And that's where a lot of us are ending up, is that we don't have careers, we don't have good jobs, and our near future is very bleak. Like I am in the last days of having my current job. I think that they're going to do a letter to HR, and then it's going to be explain in the letter how I haven't done my job correctly, and that's how I'm going to get canned. Because I'm being audited at work, and that's usually never a good thing when they're going to start nitpicking everything you've done for the past few years to see what connections they can make in order to get rid of you. So I don't expect to be around long, but joining the ranks of the unemployed will probably give me better material for doing YouTube, because I am going to be going from a nearly 6-figure income down to nothing. And it's going to be a rough fall. But, what goes up must come down, right, folks? So, yeah, I will be joining you guys down there in the pit of despair. And who knows how far down I'm going to go into the pit. But I can't sleep anymore. My stomach is constantly in knots. I know this feeling very well. I've experienced it many times in my life, and it's that moment, it's the calm before the storm, and you just have to deal with it. All right, paragraph number 2. People keep saying, just keep at it. Things will get better. But better for who? I've got colleagues who are younger, still wide eyed and hopeful, but when you tell them, hey, after all this grind, you could end up right where I am, they look at you like you've just told them Santa isn't real. That's what happens to a lot of people. And they go through college, they come out, and you're making the same amount as they are, even though you worked in the same industry your whole life. They come out and they're like, well, how come I'm not making as much as you are? That's because I have years and years, decades of experience. And they're like, well, when am I going to get there? And most of you will not. And it reminds me of being 12 years old. I was out trout fishing on the Salt River right beneath, I believe it's called Blue Ridge Bridge over the Salt River right before you get to Saguaro Lake. And I was sitting there, and there was an old man fishing. Old man. He had to be in his 60s. He's probably not alive anymore. If you look at the dates, he's probably gone by now. But that little old man was catching trout. I was not. We were both using the exact same setup, split shot, small hook, and a piece of corn. The only difference is he had all that experience, a lifetime of knowing how to perfectly move the bait underwater to get it to where the trout were. Because I didn't know. I was just casting and reeling it back in, casting it. I didn't have the patience. I didn't have the wisdom. I didn't have the skill. And he told me, when I asked him when I would be able to catch fish like him, he just looked at me, smiled, and he said, a long time. And I was just like, I can't wait a long time. I want to catch fish now. Unfortunately, you can't rush it, people. This is as with anything. It's whether you're successful in relationships, there are going to be people who are just never going to be successful with the opposite sex. Either you're going to spend your whole life not understanding what they want or being something that they don't want. And in our society, you can be that thing that society doesn't want. There's a reason why there's a lack of opportunity for certain people, for a lot of people, for the 99%. That lack of opportunity means that you can grind, you can put forth immense effort, and without opportunity to get you out of a bad situation, you can spend your entire life in the bad situation. And in order to ease the pain of the bad situation, we do things like tell ourselves it's going to get better. But you wait a decade, you wait a second decade, and after about 20 years, you realize, you know what? It was a lie. It was never meant to get better. There are no mechanisms in place to make the lives of the average person better. In fact, I would say that there are more ways, cynical ways, of making certain that poor people stay poor. Because the last thing you want is for poor people to get comfortable. Because comfortable people don't work crummy jobs. Happy people don't come to work to be miserable. Happy people don't come to a job like my current job. They simply wouldn't put up with it. They want to go to a job that it may not be their favorite, but it's paying a comfortable wage. Your boss isn't a person who's out to get you, and you don't like the way that the toxic environment rubs off on you, and it's hard to stop. The pain and suffering of the toxic work environment doesn't stop with 8 to 5 because you think about it at night, you think about it on the weekends, you think about going back on Monday morning. In fact, yesterday I saw a picture of a girl who was crying in her car, and they took a picture of her from the front while she was holding the front wheel, and she's like, "Oh no, I have to go back to work." And that's the face that she had. That's the face we all have when we're going back to work on Monday morning because we really don't want to go. All right, my final paragraph. And honestly, it's not about discouraging them, it's about being real. Because if I had known then what I know now, I would have made some different choices. Maybe I'd have questioned the system sooner. You get to a point where working hard just doesn't add up anymore. And that's the truth no one wants to talk about. So here I am breaking the silence. If it makes people uncomfortable, good. It's time we stop lying to ourselves about where all this effort really gets us. So, that's what the AI had to say, writing in my voice. It's not happy. It's not a solution. It's not hope for the future. It's this is what life is. This is what you're going to get. And immense effort at life doesn't mean success. Immense effort at life could just keep you living in survival mode. Food and rent. That's where I'm going to be probably for the next few years is food and rent. I don't see there being some great career opportunity for me. I mean, my current job started out as janitor, filling in for the receptionist, putting up things, maintenance work, moving furniture. I mean, I started out at a job that was pretty crummy. And just because there was no one else. Remember, desperation isn't just on the part of the worker. Desperation is in evil corp's hands as well. When they post a job that requires a master's degree and 5 years of experience but only pays $10 an hour, they're hoping that some prole out there is desperate enough to take that job. And it's something I actually heard in reference to Gen Z last week. It's like we know we're not going to hire the best. This was a job, this was a minimum wage job for a person that, and in this situation, a person who can't afford to work for this wage because it's not enough money. But luckily, this person also has the ability to ask their family to pitch in for with rent money every month. Without that additional help, Gen Z would be Gen Z living on the street because the pay is not sufficient to cover basic expenses of shelter and food. It's just not. And it wasn't designed that way. It wasn't designed for a person that needed money. And it really upsets me when I think that there are more and more jobs that are designed around not paying people enough to survive on. And that's been normalized.